You wake up tired, you get through the day on caffeine and willpower. By the afternoon, you're running on empty. At night, you cannot sleep properly, even though you're exhausted. And underneath all of it, there is this low feeling, not quite sadness, more like a flatness, a gray quality to the day that you cannot quite shake. If that sounds familiar, I want to tell you something that I think will genuinely change how you see what is happening in your body. Because these are not three separate problems, they're one problem showing up in three different places. And that problem has a name, it has a mechanism, and importantly, it has a solution. One of the most fundamental principles of traditional medicine is this: the body does not develop symptoms randomly. Every symptom points to a root, and when multiple symptoms appear together consistently, they almost always share a root. The nervous system is that root for most of what I can see. And the science behind why these three things, energy, sleep, and mood, are all governed by the same system is both precise and deeply practical. Let me start with the architecture, because once you understand this system, how this system is organized, everything makes sense. Your nervous system has two modes. You've probably heard of them. There's the sympathetic nervous system, which is a fight or flight. This is your activation mode. Your heart rate's up, blood pressure is up, digestion slows, and your body is mobilizing energy for a threat. The parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. This is your recovery mode. Heart rate is down, digestion resumes, and your body repairs, restores, and rebuilds. These two modes are governed by a structure in your brain called the hypothalamus, which Harvard Medical School describes as the command center of your body. It sits just above the brainstem and communicates with every other system in your body through the autonomic nervous system. It regulates your heart rate, your body temperature, and your hormones, and critically for today, your energy levels, your sleep, and your mood chemistry. So when the hypothalamus is receiving a signal that you are safe, that the threat has passed, it allows your parasympathetic system to take over. Your body restores itself. Energy is rebuilt. Sleep becomes possible. The chemistry for positive mood is produced. When it is receiving a chronic stress signal, when it perceives that the threat has not passed, the sympathetic system stays active and everything downstream suffers. So let us start with energy, because this is usually the first thing people notice. Your energy is not just about how you slept. It's about your HPA axis, the hormonal pathway that runs between your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, and your adrenal glands. So here's how it works. When your nervous system is in chronic stress, the hypothalamus sends a signal through this pathway that triggers the release of cortisol from the adrenal glands. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, and it mobilizes energy for a perceived threat. The problem is this: cortisol is designed for short-term bursts. When it stays elevated chronically, day after day, week after week, it depletes the very systems it is borrowing from. Your adrenal glands become fatigued. Mitochondrial function, which is the cellular machinery that produces your actual energy, it becomes impaired, and the result is a tiredness that does not improve with rest. This is why people can sleep for 8 hours and still wake up exhausted. The problem is not how much sleep they got. The problem is that the nervous system never stopped activating the stress response long enough for genuine restoration to occur. Your energy levels are a direct readout of your nervous system state. Now, let's talk about sleep. And this connects directly to everything I just said about cortisol. Sleep is governed by two systems working together. Your circadian rhythm, for one, which is the internal clock that tells your body when to sleep and when to wake, and your sleep pressure, the buildup of adenosine in the brain throughout the day that creates the feeling of sleepiness. Both of these systems operate correctly when the nervous system is regulated. When it's not, when cortisol is chronically elevated, two things happen that directly disrupt sleep. First, cortisol is a wakeful hormone. Its natural peak is in the early morning. It is what wakes you up. When it is elevated at night, which happens under chronic stress, it signals to the brain to stay alert. The nervous system's fight or flight mode is incompatible with the parasympathetic state required for sleep onset. Second, and this is what research from Science Direct confirmed, sleep deprivation itself alters autonomic nervous system responses, increasing sympathetic activity and reducing parasympathetic activity. So poor sleep creates more nervous system dysregulation, which creates more poor sleep. It's a cycle. And the way out of it is not sleeping more. The way out of it is regulating the nervous system that governs sleep in the first place. And now let's talk about mood. And this is where the picture becomes complete. Your mood is largely determined by the availability of three neurotransmitters: dopamine, which is motivation and drive, the feeling of reward. Then you have serotonin, which is calm, emotional stability, and a sense of well-being. And you have norepinephrine, which is alertness, focus, and the ability to engage with life. All three are produced, regulated, and depleted by the nervous system. And all three are directly affected by chronic stress. Chronic cortisol elevation depletes serotonin. This is well documented. The HPA axis, when chronically activated, suppresses serotonin synthesis and receptor sensitivity. When serotonin is low, the world feels flat, feels gray, joyless without obvious reason. Dopamine is depleted by chronic nervous system activation because the reward system, the dopamine pathway, requires a certain level of safety and calm to function properly. Under constant threat activation, dopamine becomes less available. Motivation drops. Things that used to feel rewarding stop feeling that way. And when you add sleep deprivation to this picture, which we now know is caused by the same nervous system dysregulation, the depletion compounds further. Sleep is when neurotransmitters are synthesized and restored. Poor sleep means fewer resources to replenish what chronic stress has depleted. This is why the tired can't sleep and low mood cluster together. They are three expressions of the same depleted, dysregulated nervous system. So what does nervous system regulation actually look like? And where do herbs come in? This is where I want to connect something. I have made videos on rosemary for focus, on a 6-herb sleep tea, on the blueberry smoothie for brain health. Each of those videos addressed one part of this picture. This video is about the root all of them share. Because when you regulate the nervous system, when you give it the compounds it needs to move from chronic sympathetic activation back to a state of genuine regulation, everything downstream begins to restore. Energy improves, sleep deepens, mood stabilizes, not because you treated 3 problems, because you address the one root they came from. Ashwagandha is one of the most studied adaptogenic herbs for HPA axis regulation. It directly reduces cortisol and supports the adrenal function that chronic stress depletes. Rhodiola supports mitochondrial energy production while reducing the cortisol response to stress. Lemon balm, which you have heard me talk about in the sleep video, keeps GABA active longer, and so calming the nervous system at the neurochemical level. Passion flower activates the same GABA pathway through a different mechanism. Both herbs working on the same root through different pathways. These are some of the herbs that I've formulated in my energy and focus blend and my deep sleep blend. Not as separate solutions for separate problems, but as a system, because the nervous system they support is one system. Your body is not failing you. Your nervous system is responding exactly the way it was built to respond, to a level of chronic stress that it was never designed to sustain. The tiredness, the sleep, the low mood, these are not character flaws. They're not weaknesses. They're actual, accurate signs from a symptom that is overloaded and asking for support. And the starting point for that support is always the same. Regulate the nervous system. Give it the conditions it needs to move from activation back to restoration, and watch how much of the rest begins to flow. If this resonated, subscribe. Every week I share content on herbs, nutrition, brain health, and nervous system wellness, rooted in both traditional medicine and neuroscience. Health Roots Holistic, rooted in nature, backed by science.